This was the first, and he formulated it on his own. And mind you, he was a lawyer. He was not a technical person, but he was interested in the area. He started in a small room in Jacob Circle in Mumbai,
Uh-huh.
and slowly and steadily evolved what has come to now be known as the Pidilite secret formula, or the secret formula for success.
Mm-hmm.
He first went to and kept listening to the consumer. He spent a lot of time with carpenters, understanding their problems.
Mm-hmm.
Modified his product, kept working with carpenters. The first company in those days, everybody else who was competing was an imported product, which was a multinational.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly and steadily built his connect with carpenters, and steadily kept growing the company. Slowly it became known as the Fevic. It started with dyes and chemicals, and it started with dyes for the textile industry, emulsions for the textile industry, and then wood glues, and slowly came to be known as the Fevicol company. You look at his foresightedness. In the 80s, he decided that, listen, besides carpenters, he now needs the consumer to know his brand. Now, fascinatingly, we've done a lot of work around there to try and understand. There are very few countries that we can find a glue which actually the consumer doesn't see to be one of the top brands in the country. I don't know of any other country. We've looked hard and all over. He started advertising in the 80s, and it was fascinating. And in fact, look at his ability to spot talent. One of the first ads that Piyush Pandey, who is now, a legend in advertising, actually worked on and is now actually also on our board, was Pidilite. And Pidilite has worked with Piyush Pandey now pretty much over 40 years. He is the creative head on Pidilite. He's also the account head. He's basically the advertising man for Pidilite. His talent when he was a young account executive was spotted by Balwant Bhai. And over time, if I was to tell you what is the Pidilite formula, spot unserved, underserved categories, which are commodities, fill those not with the product, but with the brand. Then work tirelessly with both consumers and users until you create the category. And then you repeat it again. So if you look at the story of Fevicol, you look at the story of Fevikwik. Again, small little tube, 5 rupees. Do you know, he got the idea of the 5 because Indians hate to waste. All of, you and me both know that. All of the glues that were available then were imported and were 20 rupee tubes. And 20 rupees in those days was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
He got the idea from eye drops and pioneered the 1-drop adhesive at 5 rupees and completely opened the category. Now, Fevikwik is, most people don't know. We are always known by Fevicol, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. Fevikwik, by number of transactions, is one of India's top 10 consumer products because even now, 20 years later, it is still a 5 rupee product. And, we sell a few crore pieces every month. So it's fascinating. In fact, people come and tell me I was on a trek at 12,000 feet in, Himachal. I was in Meghalaya and, for my shoes, I found Fevikwik there. And the guy was selling, glucose biscuits and Fevikwik. Now, that's the power of the brand. And so we applied the same formula to Fevikwik. You see M-Seal. The M in M-Seal was Mahindra. It was bought from Mahindra as M-Seal. The same formula applied, created the brand, created the category, and now it's like, water seepage and water in the home. We created the Dr. Fixit brand, and therefore... So the story of Pidilite is a simple one. You pioneer categories, achieve leadership, and then you repeat it all over again. And it is enabled by really 3 things. Outstanding sales and distribution management, B, great innovation, and C, great people management, building the right culture and experimentative, doing, prenorial culture, which enables things to happen. That is frankly the fascinating. If you look at 60 years of Pidilite, that's the consistent story.
Yeah. So it has been one of the most consistent stories. But how do you make money in the sense that you said it is basically a commodity in the sense that glue or M-Seal or they are like a very easy to build kind of a product. I mean, not as a branded product, but as a alternative or as a commodity, they're not that difficult to build. At least it sounds from outside a very simple product. But you have been able to create a fantastic, amazingly powerful brands. So how do you make money in the sense that your 45-50% is raw material cost, and then you have a whole lot of in last 15-20 years. So is there any formula which has changed? Because you have been branded company for quite some time, but how do you make money?
Our formula for making money is actually no secret. Very simply, first we start with we build with a superior proposition. Everybody else is using a commodity. We give something which is much more value added, and we work with users to show them that advantage. Now, if I gave, go rewind to 10 years or 15 years back, and if you had seepage in your home and I gave you a product that stopped the seepage, you will give me the premium for it. So when you create categories as a first mover, you will always get the value from the consumer as long as you're true to your proposition, and B, as long as you're persisting in, creating categories is not easy. It's always easy being a follower. As they say, being a pioneer, being the first is always more difficult. But when you're the first, then you also get the best view. And that's how you make money.
Yeah. And third is is the company profitable? Of course, your company is profitable from ever. I think from 59 itself, every year you must have made money. And now you are making money at about 25% kind of return on capital employed. So your capital employed is also very limited. You have been quite profitable. So do you monitor this particular metrics, and how do you look at your profitability in your company?
See, we're always clear that intrinsically anything that we must do must be profitable over a period of time. We're most happy. I'm not worried about this quarter and the next quarter. The wonderful thing about Pidilite is we're a long-term player. We're here for the long term. Intrinsically, anything we enter must give me the possibility to make money over a period of time. And that's a principle we remain true to. Therefore, from a gross margin perspective, we will always be profitable. We may invest more in sales and distribution. We may invest more in advertising and in a lot of meetings with influencers, etc. But that's all part of a plan. Over a consistent basis, if you look at our profitability, we've always said our EBITDA margin will remain between 20 and 25%, and it's been like that for a number of years. When raw material prices are soft, it goes to the upper end. When they are, and again, we don't price for inflation. We will always price at 75% of inflation because we must keep getting more and more efficient. And of course, obviously, ROCE is something we monitor. The good thing about any Indian promoters, I think, is there's always a value of capital. Your capital allocation is never indiscriminate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And since you're profitable, now the next thing is about terms of trade. How is your relationship with your creditors and debtors, more particularly with the debtors? So I have seen that in recent years, slightly the debtors, maybe there's a slowness in the economy or whatever, but there is a little bit of slippage in the debtors, your terms of trade with the trade. So is there any conscious strategy to slacken it or tighten it? What are the plans in terms of translation into cash flow?
I think that's a great question. See, actually, what has happened is over time, our exposure to a lot of new sectors has come up. For example, we've got divisions that now look at organized real estate. Mm-hmm. Now, the number of credit days in organized real estate is always going to be more than the retail market. However, as India, as the Motilal Oswals of the world build their buildings, they're not going to go to a retailer to buy. I need to have a separate division which is talking to them. Mm-hmm. So over time, because our exposure to institutional sales, the government has gone up, our debtors in those areas have gone up. But if you look at 85% of our business is consumer business, there the number of days of debtors is exactly the same. Actually, it's got a little better over time. And it's only in extraordinary circumstances like now in COVID where we actually went to our distributors and said, listen, until COVID gets all right, don't worry about paying. This is about partnership. We are holding your hand. And the fascinating thing is if you look at our debtors now at the end of September, we are back to normal again. So overall, the policy hasn't changed, but as an organization, we keep evolving. Exposure to some sectors will give you a little more debt, some will give you a little less debt.
So the change is because of the mix?
Is because of the mix, absolutely.
Okay. And one of the things is that over a period, particularly last, I think, 13, 14 years, the company has become hugely profitable. I mean, the margin structure has changed a lot. I mean, I remember in early 2000 and all, it was not as profitable. It was always known because of the brands. but it was not as profitable. It was EBITDA margins were less than 10% types. And from there, something has happened. Maybe you have contributed to the whole process, but the company has become far more profitable in terms of margins. Something has changed. Raw materials have remained at around 45-50%, but other expenses have changed a lot. So what does that portend in terms of how to look at the margin structure in future?
I think three things, Ramdev, have happened. One is very clearly, to be fair, the credit actually goes to the the promoter family and the founder and the work that was done. You're actually these are all investments that you're now reaping the benefits of, because for years you've invested in your brand, you've invested in your dealer relationships, you have invested in your influencer relationships, and over a period of time that is giving you a premium. So that's one. Second is innovation. See, a lot of people think of Fevicol as one brand. Fevicol actually has over 200 SKUs. There is a Fevicol which is for work when the surface is wet. There's a Fevicol for the kitchen when your temperatures are high. There's a Fevicol for air conditioning ducts. There's a Fevicol for flooring. There's a Fevicol for children's art and craft. So over time, we've also ensured that a lot of our innovation is always margin accretive. And therefore, over time, the product mix has kept helping us. The value of the brand has kept helping us. And thirdly, scale. As you get bigger, so on and so forth, etc., the benefits of scale continue to accrue. And as the Indian economy has grown, like all good FMCG companies, we have grown 1.5 to 2 times GDP, and that has now given us the scale. And therefore, the sum total of all of that is a very healthy EBITDA margin.
But you've done, the company has done very well in terms of margin improvement in a sustained way in last 15 years, and that's the salami market is giving. But coming back to the, again, profitability issue, one is you have now optimized the margin, I would say at about 14-15% of net margin. It's a fabulous margin to have. But what about your asset turns? That has kind of stuck at about less than 2 times. I mean, like one of the things is that you are using a little more capital than what was earlier. Maybe it is to do with the business mix, but clearly the focus on the asset turn is somewhat slackened. And you are coming from the background of the international companies, and there this asset turn is the mantra.
Yes. No, I think that's again a great question. I must tell you it is intentional. See, in Pidilite, we have a very simple model of growth. We classify our categories into 3 categories: core categories, growth categories, and pioneer categories. Core categories are those where we already have a market leading position. We're already leading, we've already created the category, and our job is to grow the category. Pioneer categories are categories where normally we are competing against non-consumption. Take something like waterproofing. Even now, 4 or 5 out of 10 homes in India do any proper form of waterproofing. So really our task is to educate and create the market rather than get share out of these 4. So we have a set of pioneer categories. And thirdly, we have a set of growth categories. And thirdly, we have pioneer categories, which very simply are tomorrow's core categories, tomorrow's growth categories. Take something like, tomorrow, Ramdev, if you were to renovate your home and you did tiling, anywhere else in the world, you will use tile. To put tiles, you will use sand, cement, and some adhesive. In India, 9 out of 10 people use only sand and cement. They don't put adhesive. But now as you have these vitrified tiles, you have larger tiles. If you don't use adhesive, they're going to come off, they're going to fall. Now here, if 1 out of 10 is using it, this is to us a pioneer category. The job is to create this category over time. If I can make this 1 into 2, 3, 4, and 5, I've got a runway for growth for the next 4 to 5 years. So a few years back, when we looked at our portfolio, we realized we'd been concentrating a lot on the core, but we needed to broad base our portfolio. So over the last 5 years or so, you would have seen we've done a lot of acquisitions, joint ventures, and in a sense, we are investing for tomorrow so that our portfolio over a period of time should be 50% core, 50% growth and pioneer. That in a sense, next time, God forbid, there is a recession or a slowdown, at least half our portfolio will actually be only competing against non-consumption. It will not be based upon economic conditions. So over time, because we are broad basing our portfolio, we've invested a fair bit. We've got a whole set of new subsidiaries, etc. These are frankly our fixed deposits for the future, which are going to keep the future flywheel going.
Mm-hmm. So you are conscious of the turnover, but it is very conscious effort to keep it at this level because of the emerging categories. They require a little more capital. They don't turn that fast, isn't it?
They will take a little more time because remember, in our model, if you're going to create categories, it
Hmm.
takes a little bit of time, but then once it's done, it constantly then gives you return.
Yeah.
That's the journey we're on.
Yeah. So now coming to competition, which is a main thing in the sense that in analysis, how do you look at your competition? I mean, it is a very interesting category, very heavily advertised and darling of the market in terms of consumer side, and very few competitors. I mean, you have, I think, crazy market share, and very few are attempting to disrupt you. So, how do you look at competition? How do you keep the competitors away from you?
See, I must tell you, it appears, in fact, on a more light-hearted way, a lot of times, people will look at you and say, "Arey, you must be having an easy job because you don't have competition." But actually, that's not true. Every major global major, whether it's a Henkel, whether it's a 3M, whether it's a Huntsman, all of them have actually, some of them are still in the market. All of them have tried uh, and pitted their products against us. Some of them are still available. Our policy has always been simple: make sure you have the strongest brand, and hopefully you're delighting your customer a little more than everybody else. A lot of domestic companies on a regular basis are coming in waterproofing. All of the paint companies are now making a play. See, any consultant who has to recommend new categories in the home improvement space is going to look at Pidilite's size and profitability and say that, listen, even if you got a little share of that, you'll be very profitable, so why don't you enter here? So we're not strangers. We know we will keep getting competition. We are very respectful to it. We will keep a very close watch on it. But what we keep telling our people is, listen, we must satisfy our customer a little more than everybody else, and look forward. Don't look too much behind your shoulder. Otherwise, after some time, you'll focus too much on competition and too little on the customer.
So, would you think that the current margin structure of 15% would invite a little more because now capital has become very easily available in India. So, can it invite newer competitions, more aggressive competitors, and build the distribution and even brand matching? Because you are taught the making of brands out of commodities. So, your competition will do first of that. And are you seeing anybody challenging your current, kind of absolutely monopolistic status?
See, we're very obviously cognizant of competition, respectful of it. We must keep, remain true to our model. We make sure, for example, our price premiums are always reasonable. Therefore, at any point of time, we're not giving anybody a large enough play for them to actually try and replicate our model and actually pull the rug from under our feet. We make sure we stay there. And we believe our operating margins are at the right level. It's to keep investing back and make sure we grow volumes and grow the top line aggressively. And as far as competition is concerned, be very mindful, keep a close watch. But if you're doing the right thing, hopefully you will keep them at bay.
Yeah, I think Astral Poly is trying to enter your segment, and they're also smart guys. So, and they are growing it rapidly. Is it hurting your growth? I mean, of course, everything else is fine, but is
My
it?
simple answer, Ramdev, is you are a champion analyst. You take despite our size, take our 3 years adhesive growths and take their 3 year adhesive growths and see the results, and then you will know whether they are hurting us or not.
Okay. And what are the sources of sustainable? I mean, in management jargon, sustainable competitive advantages. But I mean, apart from differentiation, I would say differentiation is scale. That would be market dominance. That could be your source of competitive advantage. But anything more, you can enlighten us on
I
this.
would say three things. One is, remember, these are branded businesses, the power of the brand. And, can remember in the annual brand equity surveys, Fevicol is now amongst India's top 10 brands. It's not the top 10, home improvement, or it's one of the top 10 overall brands. In household care, it is the number one brand. So, to my mind, that is a strong competitive advantage, the power of the brand. I think the second is distribution, reach, and availability. We are now pretty much in all villages over 10,000. We actually have programs where in 70% of villages between 5 and 10,000, we reach directly. So, our distribution reach is obviously, it's a competitive moat. It will take time for people to make that up. And thirdly, I believe in all of this, your culture, your people, the way we work, the way our people are, the way our people enjoy working at Pidilite, I think that's a competitive advantage. We have a wonderful team at Pidilite. And, if you look at, for example, the COVID period, the wonderful thing is they have put up their hands. They have been ahead, looking after customers, looking after carpenters, looking after, tile layers. Largely because I've always maintained that character is best tested in adversity. And if you have a good culture, you're doing the right things, you will win when adversity comes. And hopefully that is what is happening.
Yeah. And now, having seen the company in the last, it's a established company and very profitable company, growing company, a very respected company. Now, but that's all past. And the market has more than rewarded for whatever it has done so far. But what is the future story? In the sense that where is the, you have a competitive advantage, so profitability is not almost guaranteed. But what is the growth story? What is the addressable market? Do you see, you must be excited to see the future. So how exactly you see the future opportunity and what are the growth drivers for this company?
Again, great question, Ramdev. We're actually very excited by two things. A, the India opportunity. And then if you look at it broadly, we're in the home improvement space. And if you look at any statistics, home improvement will grow at 1.5 to 2 times GDP. So as long as India keeps growing within India, we will be well advantaged and our addressable market will continuously keep increasing. We started, for example, with wood glues, then we went on to waterproofing. We're now going into tiles and tiles adhesives. Then we're going through the grouts on the tiles. We're going to the wood finish. So over a period of time, improving your home, we will have a range for pretty much the whole home. And the fascinating thing is there are still so many categories that still have to be created. In our case, it's a question of making the right choices, not about what to do, but what not to do. And I think that's the wonderful thing with the business model and the area that we're in. The other thing, of course, also is, remember, we're clear we are an emerging markets player. Our India success model should be able to be reapplied in other emerging markets. So I'll give you the example of Bangladesh. We went to Bangladesh and we were the 5th company in Bangladesh. So there were already people there. It was not that we were the first. In 10 years, we are the clear leader in Bangladesh. Fevicol has the same kind of position now in Bangladesh that it has in India. In fact, anecdotally, the immigration guy asked me what brings you to Bangladesh, and I said I work for Fevicol, and he was most happy. He started telling me about the advertising of Fevicol. Now Bangladesh is a great example of where it's now, while we are investing back, it is growing at very healthy rates. It is a market where we have won and we are the clear leaders. We actually believe many more Bangladesh. We've now set up in Sri Lanka. We are obviously all over the SAARC area. We're looking at Africa very aggressively. But India will remain our focus and laboratory. We will first win in India and then we will take that winning formula and reapply it to markets like India. So when people ask us, what about Europe? What about US? We say no. Listen, let's keep our focus. Our focus is the emerging world. This is the world we know how to win. And this is where we will remain. And this is such a large opportunity, Ramdev. Again, if I look at the product geography combinations, again, it is about what not to do rather than what to do.
What I'm observing is that last 5-7 years has been relatively slower growth, at least in terms of top line. So is there a linkage with the economy? Or real estate? Where is the linkages? How do I figure out that now Pidilite is going to grow at double the pace at which it was growing without asking you? Or in the sense that, how do I understand the company in terms of growth? What drives the growth of this company?
See, we've done a lot of work actually understanding that. Fascinatingly, the closest correlation remains to GDP growth. Home improvement actually correlates very well to GDP growth because it's all about not only new homes, but repair and renovation is a large part of it. So really, and as I said, what are we trying to do vis-a-vis our model? My core categories must grow at 1.5 to 2 times GDP. But as we create more growth in pioneer categories where you're competing against non-consumption, hopefully over a period of time, you will therefore grow faster than 1.5 times to 2 times GDP, as you'll have a lot of categories where you are creating the category rather than worrying about economic growth. But overall, if I was to tell you, yes, economic growth will remain the single biggest driver for growth for any consumer goods company in India. The India opportunity has to be about India growing.